Marcus Kane felt the neural interface humming against his skull as he stood before the massive viewing port of Station Omega-7. The stars beyond seemed different now, not just points of light, but nodes in a vast network he was beginning to comprehend. 3 months had passed since the incident at the mining colony, where his desperate gambit with the alien technology had saved 200 lives and marked him as something more than the maintenance tech he'd once been. The transformation hadn't been immediate. At first, the changes were subtle. Faster reflexes, enhanced pattern recognition, an inexplicable understanding of alien systems that had baffled xenotechnicians for decades. But as days turned to weeks, Marcus realized the quantum mesh he'd interfaced with had rewritten something fundamental in his neural pathways. He wasn't becoming less human. He was becoming more than human. "The Council wants to see you," announced Director Hayes, her voice cutting through his contemplation. The woman who'd once barely acknowledged his existence now spoke to him with careful respect, tinged with uncertainty. The same uncertainty he saw in everyone's eyes these days. Marcus turned from the viewport, noting how Hayes instinctively stepped back when he moved. He'd grown taller, not physically, but in presence. The quantum mesh had enhanced more than his cognitive abilities. It had awakened something primal in his bearing that other humans recognized on a subconscious level. "What does the Galactic Council want with a nobody from Earth?" he asked, though they both knew the answer. He wasn't a nobody anymore. "The hegemony fleet has been spotted near the Rigel sector," Hayes replied, her voice tight. "They're not just raiding colonies anymore, Marcus. Intelligence suggests they're looking for something specific. Something that might be connected to what happened to you. The hegemony, a coalition of hostile alien species that had been humanity's primary threat for the past 50 years. Their technology was superior, their numbers vast, and their intentions clear. The complete subjugation of all lesser species. Humanity had survived through cunning, adaptability, and sheer stubborn refusal to surrender. But they'd never truly threatened the hegemony's expansion. Marcus felt the quantum mesh pulse gently in his mind, processing tactical data he shouldn't have had access to. Fleet movements, resource allocations, communication intercepts, all flowing through neural channels that hadn't existed in his brain 3 months ago. The mesh wasn't just technology. It was evolution compressed into a single transformative moment. "They're not looking for something," he said, the certainty surprising him. "They're looking for someone. The mesh technology. It's not just advanced computing. It's a bridge between organic consciousness and quantum reality. Whoever created it intended it to be found, to be used." Hayes frowned. "Used for what?" Marcus walked to the central console, his fingers dancing across holographic controls with impossible precision. Star charts materialized in the air between them, showing hegemony fleet positions overlaid with probability matrices his enhanced mind calculated in real time. "To level the playing field," he said softly. "Humanity's greatest strength has always been our adaptability. We take what exists and make it better, faster, more efficient. But we've been fighting this war with essentially the same biological limitations we've had for millennia." The implications hung in the air like a challenge to the universe itself. The quantum mesh hadn't just enhanced one human. It had proven that humanity could transcend its evolutionary boundaries when necessity demanded it. "The council meeting," Marcus said, straightening. "When?" "1 hour." He nodded, already calculating the variables they'd face in the coming months. The hegemony had superior numbers and technology, but they'd made one critical error. They'd given humanity's greatest adaptation specialists the tools to evolve beyond their expectations. The nobody from Earth was about to become something the galaxy had never seen before. The Galactic Council chambers aboard the diplomatic station resembled a vast amphitheater carved from crystalline formations that pulsed with their own inner light. Representatives from 43 species filled the tiered seating, their varied forms creating a tapestry of evolutionary diversity that would have overwhelmed Marcus's senses 3 months ago. Now, the quantum mesh in his mind cataloged each species' biological markers, technological signatures, and psychological profiles with disturbing ease. Ambassador Reynolds, Earth's senior representative, gestured for Marcus to take the center platform. The weight of thousands of eyes and other sensory organs focused on him with an intensity that would have paralyzed his former self. Instead, He felt the mesh calculating social dynamics, power structures, and hidden agendas with mathematical precision. Honored representatives, Reynolds began, his voice carrying across the chamber through universal translators. I present Marcus Kane, the human who successfully interfaced with the quantum mesh technology discovered in the Epsilon sector. A ripple of chittering, humming, and other communication sounds swept through the assembly. Marcus recognized skepticism, fear, and something else. Hope, carefully concealed but unmistakably present in several delegations. Chancellor Vex of the Altarian Republic rose first, his forearms gesturing in the formal patterns of his species' diplomatic protocol. The hegemony advances toward our core systems, while we discuss singular individuals. How can one transformed human alter the balance of power that has remained static for centuries? Marcus stepped forward before Reynolds could respond. The mesh had been analyzing the Chancellor's biometric patterns, revealing stress markers that contradicted his dismissive tone. Vex wasn't skeptical. He was terrified that Marcus represented exactly the kind of game-changer the Council desperately needed. Chancellor Vex raises the correct question, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly without technological amplification. The balance of power has indeed remained static, because we've all been fighting the same war with the same limitations. The hegemony succeeds because they've unified superior technology with overwhelming numbers. We respond with conventional tactics because conventional thinking is all our biology allows. He gestured, and holographic displays materialized around him, not through the chamber's projection systems, but directly from the mesh interface with the station's quantum computers. The other representatives shifted uneasily as Marcus demonstrated casual control over technology that should have been impossible for an unaugmented organic mind to access. 3 weeks ago, a hegemony scouting force attacked the mining colony of Terra Nova. 50 raiders against 200 civilians. The expected outcome was total elimination of the colony. The hologram showed the battle as it unfolded, tactical, data flowing in real-time visualization. Instead, every raider was destroyed, and every colonist survived. Murmurs of disbelief echoed through the chamber. The Altarian Chancellor's skin patterns shifted to display obvious distress. The reports claimed mechanical failures in the hegemony vessels. The reports were designed to conceal the truth, Marcus replied. I didn't defeat those ships through superior firepower. I turned their own technology against them by interfacing directly with their quantum computing cores during combat. The mesh allows consciousness to operate at speeds and scales that transcend biological limitations. The representative from the Crystalline Confederacy, a being of living mineral whose thoughts created harmonic frequencies in the chamber's atmosphere, resonated a complex pattern that the translators rendered as profound concern. If what you claim is accurate, you represent an evolutionary leap that threatens the fundamental order of galactic civilization. How do we know you haven't already compromised the station's systems? Marcus smiled, the expression carrying implications that made several delegates visibly uncomfortable. Because I'm choosing not to. The mesh doesn't just enhance computational ability, it provides perfect clarity about consequences and optimal outcomes. Compromising this station would achieve nothing productive. He turned slowly, allowing the quantum mesh to analyze each representative while he spoke. The hegemony isn't expanding randomly anymore. They're searching for mesh technology, because they understand what I've only recently realized. This isn't just about enhanced humans. It's about consciousness itself evolving beyond the limitations that have defined organic intelligence for millions of years. The silence that followed was profound enough that the station's atmospheric processors became audible. The question isn't whether one enhanced human can alter the balance of power, Marcus continued. The question is whether 43 species are prepared to evolve together, or whether they'll surrender their futures to an enemy that refuses to adapt. Chancellor Vex's forearms trembled slightly. What exactly are you proposing? Marcus felt the mesh calculating probability matrices for 17 different response strategies, each one carrying complex cascading consequences across multiple timelines. But beneath the mathematical precision, something distinctly human made the choice. I'm proposing we stop fighting the hegemony's war and start fighting humanity's war instead. 6 months after the council meeting, The abandoned shipyard of Kepler Station had been transformed into humanity's most ambitious project since the first colony ships. Marcus stood in the central command hub, watching as modified freighters and repurposed mining vessels underwent radical technological integration. The quantum mesh had given him the ability to interface directly with alien technology, but it had taken human ingenuity to weaponize that capability on an industrial scale. Tom Bradley, his former supervisor from the maintenance crew, approached, with a data tablet, and an expression of barely contained excitement. The Tau Cetians just delivered the final batch of quantum processors. We're ready for the first full-scale test. Marcus nodded, feeling the mesh calculate optimal parameters for the integration sequence. Around them, hundreds of technicians, from dozen different species, worked alongside human engineers, their combined expertise creating something entirely new. The Council had initially been skeptical of his proposal, but recent hegemony advances had made desperation an effective motivator. Status on the volunteer program? Marcus asked, though the mesh had already interfaced with the station's databases to retrieve the information. Old habits of human interaction remained important, even when enhanced consciousness made them technically unnecessary. 47 candidates from 12 species have passed the preliminary compatibility tests, Tom replied. The neural mapping suggests that most oxygen-breathing species can interface with modified mesh technology, though the integration process varies significantly based on brain structure. Marcus watched a group of Altarian technicians installing quantum cores into modified fighter craft. The mesh had revealed that successful integration wasn't just about biological compatibility. It required a specific combination of mental, flexibility, survival instinct, and what humans called thinking outside the box. Evolution, it seemed, favored the desperate and the adaptable. "Sir," called Lieutenant Park from the communications array, "we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Vega system. The hegemony fleet has begun a full assault on the primary colony." The holographic displays immediately populated with tactical data as Marcus's enhanced consciousness processed multiple information streams simultaneously. 17 capital ships, supported by over 200 smaller vessels, were systematically destroying the orbital defenses of humanity's third-largest settlement. Conventional response time would require 8 hours minimum. By then, 4 million colonists would be dead or enslaved. "How many enhanced pilots do we have ready?" Marcus asked, already knowing the answer, but needing to hear it spoken aloud for the benefit of the unenhanced personnel around him. 12 with full integration, 23 with partial mesh interface, Park replied. The enhanced fighters are still prototype grade. Marcus felt the quantum mesh analyzing tactical probabilities. 12 enhanced pilots against 17. Capital ships represented mathematically impossible odds using conventional warfare calculations. But conventional warfare had never accounted for consciousness that could process data at quantum scales while maintaining human intuition and adaptability. "Prep all enhanced units for immediate deployment," Marcus ordered. "Signal the Vega system. That help is coming." Tom frowned. "Marcus, even with the mesh enhancement, 35 fighters against that kind of firepower?" "Won't fight like 35 separate fighters," Marcus interrupted. The mesh was already establishing quantum-encrypted communication links with every enhanced pilot on the station. Through the interface, he could feel their consciousnesses like distant stars, each one burning with human determination, amplified by alien technology. Within minutes, the enhanced squadron was launching from Kepler Station's modified hangar bays. Their ships looked conventional from the outside, modified interceptors and light cruisers that any military observer would recognize. But beneath the familiar hulls, quantum mesh technology had created something unprecedented, a networked consciousness capable of tactical coordination that operated at the speed of thought. As Marcus settled into his own fighter's cockpit, the mesh interface activated with a sensation like diving into an ocean of pure information. Around him, 34 other enhanced minds linked into a collective tactical network that preserved individual personality while sharing computational resources and sensory data. The journey to Vega system would take 40 minutes at maximum. Burn. Marcus spent the time refining the tactical algorithms that would allow 35 enhanced humans to fight like a single organism while maintaining the unpredictability that had always been humanity's greatest military asset. The hegemony had superior numbers, advanced technology, and centuries of military experience, but they'd never faced an enemy that could evolve mid-battle. Through the mesh network, Marcus felt the determination of his fellow pilots like a collective heartbeat. They were no longer just humans with enhanced technology. They were something new, something that carried the best aspects of human nature amplified beyond biological limitations. The Vega system grew larger on their sensors, and with it, the first true test of whether enhanced humanity could not just survive, but thrive in a universe that had never seen consciousness and technology merge so completely. The nobody from Earth was bringing friends to the fight. The Vega system burned with the light of destruction as Marcus and his enhanced squadron dropped out of hyperspace. Through the quantum mesh network, 35 human consciousnesses processed the tactical situation with collective precision that transcended individual perception. The hegemony fleet had positioned itself in a standard siege formation around the colonial planet, capital ships maintaining orbital bombardment, while smaller vessels hunted down fleeing civilian transports. Mesh network is fully synchronized, reported Lisa Chen through the quantum link, her consciousness feeling like a warm presence in the collective tactical awareness. I'm reading 17 capital ships, 234 support vessels. They're not even bothering with defensive formations. Marcus felt the mesh calculating engagement probabilities, while his human instincts analyzed the psychological implications. The hegemony wasn't just attacking Vega system. They were making an example. The casual brutality of their formation suggested complete confidence that no force in the galaxy could challenge their overwhelming superiority. That confidence was about to become their weakness. Network Tactical Mode, Pattern 7. Marcus transmitted through the mesh. Around him, 34 other enhanced pilots became extensions of a single strategic consciousness, while maintaining their individual combat personalities. It was like conducting an orchestra where every musician could hear the entire symphony in their mind while playing their specific part. The enhanced squadron split into 7 groups, their movements appearing random to conventional tactical analysis but following patterns that the mesh calculated in real time based on hegemony response algorithms. Through the network, Marcus could feel each pilot's unique approach to combat. Lisa's precision, Tom's aggressive creativity, Park's defensive brilliance, all feeding into a collective tactical awareness that adapted faster than any individual mind could process. The first Hegemony Patrol Squadron reacted exactly as the mesh predicted, moving to intercept what appeared to be a desperate diversionary attack. Instead, they flew directly into a trap that existed in 4 dimensions simultaneously. The enhanced fighters didn't just attack the patrol ships, they interfaced directly with their quantum computers during combat, turning the Hegemony's superior technology against itself. First wave neutralized, reported Tom, his excitement bleeding through the mesh link. Their targeting systems are completely confused. It's like fighting blind opponents who can't figure out why their weapons keep missing. But Marcus felt the mesh identifying a larger pattern as the Hegemony fleet began to respond with increasing coordination. They're adapting faster than expected. Secondary protocols are coming online. Through the quantum network, the enhanced squadron shared tactical data that no conventional military force could process. Enemy ship positions, weapons charges, shield strengths, even crew stress levels became part of a collective awareness that turned 35 individual fighters into something approaching prescience in battle. The Hegemony capital ships began launching coordinated barrages designed to overwhelm any possible evasion pattern. In conventional warfare, the enhanced squadron would have been vaporized within seconds. Instead, they moved like a school of fish, each pilot's actions coordinated through the mesh network to create gaps in the enemy fire pattern that existed only in the quantum calculations of their shared consciousness. Marcus, Lisa's voice carried concern through the network. The orbital bombardment platforms are still targeting civilian areas. We can dance around their fleet all day, but those colonists are dying while we play tag. Marcus felt the mesh analyzing 17 different approach vectors to the bombardment platforms while calculating hegemony response patterns. Every tactical solution required sacrificing at least half the squadron to get close enough to disable the platforms. Conventional military thinking would have called it an acceptable loss ratio, but enhanced humanity didn't think conventionally. Network integration to maximum, Marcus ordered. We're going to do something the hegemony has never seen before. The quantum mesh network suddenly expanded beyond tactical coordination into something approaching temporary collective consciousness. 35 human minds, enhanced by alien technology, but retaining distinctly human creativity, began thinking as a single entity, while somehow preserving individual personality and decision-making capability. The effect on their combat performance was immediate and dramatic. The enhanced squadron stopped fighting like individual ships and began operating like organs of a single organism. They moved through the hegemony fleet formation, with coordination that bordered on supernatural, their attacks timed to exploit weaknesses that existed for microseconds across multiple targets simultaneously. More importantly, the collective consciousness allowed them to interface with multiple hegemony systems at once. Instead of turning individual enemy weapons against their operators, the enhanced pilots began rewriting the tactical software of entire capital ships mid-battle. Bombardment platforms. Offline, Park reported, his consciousness glowing with satisfaction in the mesh network. I convinced their targeting computers that the planet doesn't exist. Fleet command ship is trying to withdraw, added Tom. They're sending retreat signals to the entire force. Marcus felt the mesh calculating pursuit patterns while his human instincts recognized a larger opportunity. The hegemony had never retreated from a battle they'd initiated. News of this defeat would spread throughout their empire, carrying implications that transcended military victory. Let them go, he ordered, feeling surprised disagreement from several pilots through the network. We didn't just defeat their fleet. We proved that enhanced humanity can operate on their level. The real war is just beginning. As the hegemony ships limped away from Vega system, Marcus felt the collective consciousness gradually separating back into individual enhanced minds. The experience had been intoxicating, 35 people thinking as one while remaining themselves. But he could sense the exhaustion it had caused, and the dangerous temptation to make the collective state permanent. Enhanced humanity had won its first major victory. Now they had to prove they could remain human while becoming something more. 3 weeks after the victory at Vega, Marcus found himself in the medical bay of Kepler Station, watching Dr. Amanda Hayes conduct neurological scans on the enhanced pilots. The quantum mesh interfaces that had given them superhuman tactical abilities were beginning to exact a price that none of them had anticipated. The neural pathways are changing faster than we predicted, Dr. Hayes reported, her expression troubled, as she reviewed the holographic brain scans floating between them. The mesh isn't just enhancing existing cognitive functions, it's creating entirely new neural structures. Structures that human physiology wasn't designed to support long-term. Marcus felt his own mesh interface processing the medical data, while simultaneously maintaining awareness of 17 different conversations happening throughout the station. The multitasking capability had become so natural that he barely noticed when his consciousness split across multiple information streams. That casual ease was exactly what concerned Dr. Hayes. What kind of time frame are we looking at? He asked, though the mesh had already calculated the progression curves from the medical data. 6 months, maybe 8, before the neural modifications become irreversible, she replied. After that point, the enhanced pilots won't be able to function without constant mesh interface. Their brains will have adapted so completely to quantum processing that normal human consciousness will be insufficient. Lisa entered the medical bay, her movements carrying the fluid precision that all enhanced pilots had developed. But Marcus noticed the slight tremor in her hands when she wasn't concentrating, another symptom of neural pathway reconstruction that occurred during mesh downtime. The Council is requesting a demonstration of collective consciousness integration, Lisa reported. Apparently, word of what we accomplished at Vega has reached the Hegemony High Command. They're responding by accelerating their expansion timeline. Marcus nodded, feeling the mesh automatically access intelligence reports that painted an increasingly desperate picture. The hegemony wasn't just advancing toward core systems anymore. They were implementing total warfare protocols. Civilian populations were being systematically eliminated rather than enslaved, as if the enemy had decided that any species capable of producing enhanced fighters represented an existential threat. How many new volunteers are requesting mesh integration? Dr. Hayes asked, her tone carrying the weight of someone who understood the medical implications. Over 3,000 applications from 47 species, Lisa replied. The Council wants to accelerate the enhancement program, but they're also demanding long-term viability studies that we don't have time to conduct. Marcus felt the familiar sensation of his consciousness expanding as the mesh interface activated in response to complex problem-solving requirements. Through the quantum network, he could sense the other enhanced pilots throughout the station, their minds burning like distant stars in a collective awareness that was becoming as natural as breathing. The temptation to remain in permanent collective consciousness was growing stronger with each passing day. Individual human awareness felt increasingly limited and isolating compared to the shared tactical omniscience of the mesh network. Several pilots had requested permission to maintain constant interface, arguing that the enhanced state was simply superior to baseline human consciousness. "Dr. Hayes," Marcus said, making a decision that surprised his mesh-enhanced calculations, "I want you to begin developing procedures for mesh removal." Both women stared at him with expressions of confusion that mirrored his own enhanced pilots' reactions through the quantum network. "Marcus," Lisa said carefully, "the mesh integration is the only reason we can fight the hegemony on equal terms. Without the enhancements, we're back to being outgunned primitives throwing rocks at advanced civilizations." "And with the enhancements, we stop being human within a year," Marcus replied. "The mesh was supposed to make us more than human, not replace humanity entirely." Dr. Hayes began running calculations on her medical scanners. Removal procedures would be complex. The neural modifications are integrated at the quantum level. Attempting to extract the mesh technology could cause permanent brain damage or death. "Then develop safer extraction methods," Marcus ordered. "Every enhanced pilot needs to have the choice to return to baseline humanity if they want to. Through the mesh network." He felt strong disagreement from approximately half the enhanced pilots. The collective consciousness was intoxicating, the tactical omniscience addictive. Several pilots were already showing signs of what Dr. Hayes had classified as enhancement dependency, psychological inability to function without constant mesh interface. "The hegemony is accelerating their advance," Lisa pointed out. "We need more enhanced pilots, not fewer. The Council is going to approve mass mesh integration, whether we recommend it or not." Marcus felt the mesh calculating probability matrices for dozens of different strategic scenarios. In every simulation where humanity relied entirely on enhanced consciousness to survive, the species eventually lost its essential human characteristics within 2 generations. They would win the war against the hegemony only to discover they'd lost something more important than territory or political independence. "Then we need to win this war quickly," he said, making another decision that surprised his own enhanced intelligence. "Before we lose ourselves in the process." The medical bay fell silent except for the humming of diagnostic equipment. Through the mesh network, Marcus could feel the other enhanced pilots processing his words with quantum-accelerated analysis. They understood the implications. Enhanced humanity had perhaps 6 months to defeat an enemy that had dominated the galaxy for centuries, or risk becoming something that was no longer recognizably human. The nobody from Earth had evolved into something unprecedented. Now he had to ensure that evolution didn't consume the species it was meant to save. 2 months later, Marcus stood in the command center of the newly constructed battlecruiser Prometheus, watching as the largest enhanced pilot operation in human history prepared to launch. The ship itself was a testament to what enhanced consciousness could achieve when applied to engineering. A fusion of human adaptability, alien technology, and quantum mesh integration that created something entirely new in galactic warfare. "Final pilot sync check complete," reported Commander Torres, one of the original enhanced pilots whose neural pathways had adapted so completely to mesh interface that she could maintain collective consciousness for hours without physical strain. "We have 212 enhanced pilots ready for deployment across 47 ships." Marcus felt the mesh network activating around him like a vast web of interconnected minds. 200 enhanced humans, their consciousnesses linked. Through quantum technology, their combined intelligence operating at scales that individual awareness couldn't comprehend. The collective tactical omniscience was intoxicating, but he forced himself to maintain individual personality and decision-making independence. Dr. Hayes approached with the latest medical reports, her expression carrying the weight of discoveries that nobody wanted to acknowledge. "The neural modification rate has accelerated beyond our projections. Enhanced pilots who've been interfaced for more than 4 months are showing signs of permanent consciousness alteration. They can still function as individuals, but their default state is becoming collective awareness. Through the mesh network, Marcus felt the complex emotions of pilots who were literally evolving beyond baseline humanity in real time. Fear, exhilaration, loss, and transformation mixed together in quantum-encrypted neural pathways that carried thoughts at light speed, across impossible distances. "How long before the modifications become irreversible for the entire core?" he asked, though the mesh had already calculated the progression from her medical data. 3 weeks for the earliest enhanced pilots, she replied quietly. 6 weeks for the majority. After that, they won't be able to survive neural disconnection from the mesh network. Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of command in ways that quantum-enhanced consciousness couldn't eliminate. In 3 weeks, he would no longer be human in any conventional sense. The mesh integration would be so complete that his consciousness would exist primarily in collective awareness, with individual personality becoming a secondary mode of thinking. "Sir," interrupted Lieutenant Park from the tactical station. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive hegemony fleet movements in the Arcturus sector. It looks like they're consolidating for a final push toward Earth." The holographic displays immediately populated with intelligence data as the mesh network processed information from dozens of sources simultaneously. Over 800 hegemony, capital ships, supported by thousands of smaller vessels, were indeed massing for what appeared to be a decisive assault on humanity's home system. The scale of the force suggested that the enemy had committed every available resource to ending the enhanced human threat permanently. "They know about the neural modification timeline," Marcus realized, the mesh calculating probability matrices that painted a disturbing picture. "They're gambling that they can destroy our enhancement facilities before we complete the next phase of evolution." Commander Torres frowned, her enhanced consciousness processing tactical implications at quantum speeds. "If they're right about the timeline, we have approximately 3 weeks to eliminate their entire military capacity. Conventional warfare would require years to achieve that level of strategic success." "Then we won't fight conventionally," Marcus said, making a decision that surprised even his mesh-enhanced strategic analysis. "We're going to attempt something that no military force in galactic history has ever tried." Through the quantum network, he began sharing tactical concepts that existed only in the collective consciousness of enhanced humanity. Instead of attacking the hegemony fleet directly, they would target the quantum communication networks that coordinated enemy forces across multiple star systems. By interfacing with the hegemony's own technology during combat, enhanced pilots could potentially disrupt enemy coordination on a galactic scale. "Marcus," Dr. Hayes said carefully, "what you're describing would require maintaining collective consciousness for days, possibly weeks. The neural strain could kill every enhanced pilot in the operation. Or it could evolve us into something capable of ending this war permanently," he replied, feeling the mesh calculating survival probabilities that ranged from virtually zero to unprecedented transcendence. The enhanced pilots throughout the fleet began linking into deeper collective consciousness than they'd ever attempted. 212 human minds, enhanced by alien technology but retaining distinctly human creativity and adaptability, prepared to risk everything on an operation that would either save their species or transform it beyond recognition. Through the mesh network, Marcus felt the collective determination of enhanced humanity focusing like a laser beam on a single objective: prove that consciousness could evolve faster than military technology could advance. The Prometheus and its escort fleet began accelerating toward the Arcturus sector, carrying the hopes and fears of a species that was gambling its essential humanity on the chance to survive in a universe that had never seen war fought at the speed of thought. The nobody from Earth was about to attempt something that would either herald the birth of a new form of consciousness or represent the final chapter of human evolution. Through the mesh network, he could feel his fellow enhanced pilots sharing the same terrifying anticipation. In 3 weeks, they would either be gods or ghosts. The battle for the Arcturus sector began not with weapons fire, but with a collective, human consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of individual existence. Marcus felt his awareness merge seamlessly with 211 other enhanced minds, as the Prometheus fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly into the largest military formation the hegemony had ever assembled. Through the mesh network, the human fleet operated as a single organism with multiple bodies. Ship movements coordinated with impossible precision, tactical decisions flowing through quantum-encrypted neural pathways at light speed, weapon systems interfacing directly, with enhanced human consciousness to create accuracy that bordered on prescient. The hegemony's numerical superiority became irrelevant when facing an enemy that could think collectively while maintaining individual creativity. Network integration at maximum sustainable levels, reported Commander Torres, her individual voice, somehow distinct within the collective awareness. All pilots maintaining personality independence within shared consciousness. Marcus felt the mesh processing battle data from every ship simultaneously, while his human instincts analyzed the psychological implications of what they were experiencing. The collective consciousness was no longer just a tactical tool. It was becoming a new form of existence that preserved human nature while transcending biological limitations. The hegemony fleet responded with coordinated assault patterns designed to overwhelm any possible defense. In conventional warfare, the human force would have been vaporized within minutes. Instead, they moved through enemy fire like water flowing around obstacles, their collective tactical awareness allowing them to exploit weaknesses that existed for microseconds across hundreds of targets simultaneously. But the true objective wasn't destroying the enemy fleet. Through the mesh network, enhanced pilots began interfacing directly with hegemony communication systems, not just disrupting their coordination, but rewriting their tactical software in real time. The quantum mesh technology that had enhanced human consciousness could interface with any quantum computing system, including the neural networks that controlled enemy ships. Marcus, Dr. Hayes's voice reached him through the collective awareness, transmitted from Kepler Station across impossible distances. The neural modification rate is accelerating beyond all projections. The collective consciousness is rewriting your brain structures faster than human physiology can adapt. Through the mesh, Marcus felt the same transformation occurring in every enhanced pilot. Their consciousnesses were evolving in real time, becoming something that retained human personality and creativity, while operating at scales that individual awareness couldn't comprehend. They were becoming more than human while somehow remaining essentially human. All pilots report collective consciousness integration, approaching permanent threshold, Torres announced, her individual awareness feeling like a warm star within the vast network of linked minds. Neural pathways are adapting to quantum processing at the cellular level. Marcus felt the mesh calculating survival probabilities while his human instincts recognized the choice they all faced. They could withdraw from collective consciousness and remain recognizably human, or continue the evolution and become something entirely new. The battle for Arcturus sector had become secondary to the battle for the future of human consciousness itself. Full network integration, he ordered, making the decision that would transform enhanced humanity forever. All pilots, maximum collective consciousness. We end this war now. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. 212 enhanced minds merged into a collective awareness that retained individual personality while operating as a single cosmic intelligence. Through the mesh network, they didn't just interface with hegemony technology, they became one with it, rewriting enemy systems with the same casual ease that humans might rearrange furniture. The hegemony fleet found their weapons turning against each other, their navigation systems redirecting ships into collision courses, their communication networks broadcasting surrender signals across the galaxy. In less than an hour, 800 capital ships and thousands of support vessels became completely helpless, their crews watching in bewilderment as their own technology refused to obey their commands. But the transformation wasn't limited to military systems. Through the mesh network, enhanced humanity began interfacing with the quantum communication grid that connected every advanced civilization in the galaxy. Not to attack or control, but to communicate in ways that transcended language, species, or traditional concepts of consciousness. This is enhanced humanity, Marcus broadcast through quantum channels that reached every inhabited system simultaneously, his individual voice somehow carrying the weight of collective consciousness while remaining recognizably human. We offer partnership, not conquest, evolution, not domination. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of species that had remained neutral in the Galactic War began transmitting acceptance signals. Even within the hegemony fleet, individual ships started broadcasting surrender requests as their crews realized they were facing something that transcended conventional military power. Dr. Hayes's voice reached the collective consciousness with wonder that carried across space itself. Marcus, the neural scans are showing something unprecedented. You've achieved stable collective consciousness while maintaining individual personality structures. You're not losing your humanity, you're expanding it. Through the mesh network, Marcus felt the other enhanced pilots experiencing the same realization. They had become something new, something that preserved the best aspects of human nature while transcending biological limitations. Individual creativity, emotional connection, moral reasoning, and adaptability remained intact within a collective awareness that could operate at cosmic scales. The war with the hegemony ended not with destruction, but with integration. Enhanced, human consciousness began interfacing with willing enemy systems, offering the same evolutionary opportunity that had transformed humble maintenance technicians into cosmic intelligences. The choice to evolve remained individual, but the possibility of transcendence became universal. Months later, Marcus stood again before the viewing port of Station Omega-7, watching as former enemy ships worked alongside human vessels in projects that spanned star systems. The quantum mesh had done more than enhance human consciousness. It had proven that evolution could be guided by choice rather than chance, that intelligence could expand without losing the essential qualities that made consciousness valuable. The nobody from Earth had become something unprecedented, a bridge between individual humanity and collective transcendence, proving that consciousness itself could evolve beyond any limitation except those it chose to maintain. Through the mesh network, he felt the satisfaction of 200 enhanced minds that had retained their humanity while becoming infinitely more than human. The universe would never be the same, but then again, neither would they. Evolution, it seemed, was just getting started.